We're live.
And we're live. What's up? How are you?
What's up? I'm good. I'm
We're
doing
here
well.
once again.
We are here once again.
This is episode 11, if I'm not mistaken.
Episode
No,
12.
episode 12?
Episode 12.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Okay, okay, okay. Nice. Um, we're here.
We are here.
Why did I think it was 11? Oh, because I changed from 11 to 12. So we're sure.
You changed what from 11 to 12?
The thumbnail.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So
Yeah.
I had the 11
You had
number
the 11.
impression. I had the
Yeah.
11 pouring over my imagination because that's
Yeah.
the first thing I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. I
But this
feel
is 12,
it is 12.
and we were gonna be back from a 5-minute break, but we didn't.
We are back from a 5-minute break.
We're back
You
from
could
a
be
5-minute break right now.
if
We could be.
you took the break and then you waited 5 minutes and then you started this video, that would be true.
Exactly. Which
So we're back.
hopefully some people are like, what happened? What's going on? This is 12 or 11.2.
We should have pretended that this was the same day.
Same clothes and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just even different clothes probably would have been okay as well. I think it's funny that if we say like we're here, we're alive. We always say that.
Yeah.
But it's funny that
We
we
don't
say
even know why though.
it's funny that we say that we're here because like I was just working on my computer, so I was already here. But then all of a sudden we're here, we're in a new place, which is that's the unknown
That's like,
metaphysical internet location
yeah,
that is a reality these days.
it is a reality these days, and it didn't used to be. That's
Mm-mm.
why we're like, well, we're here, whatever here means.
Right.
This is another place now than where you were 5 minutes ago.
That is very true.
Somewhat true.
How
So,
I have a question for you. I have a question for you.
I have lots of questions for you today. So I'm
How
not gonna just let you have all the questions.
Okay, well I got one and I'm gonna slip it in here. Okay?
Please. Okay.
Uh can you give me a breakdown on, like, if you were to say the what you've been producing the most and what you've been consuming the most, your consumption versus production diet, what is it right now in terms of information, content, media? What are you taking in? What are you putting out?
But taking in, it's just music right now,
Hmm.
I think.
Nice. That's good.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I used to lose time, but lose, quote unquote, lose because if you're watching a lecture or a documentary or a film, I don't think you're wasting time. But if you put it in productivity standards, you are. Um,
Yeah.
so so right now I'm avoiding that. I'm consuming music
Hmm.
almost all day, and I'm outputting, I guess, just the my Instagram project of the
Hmm.
daily videos, and and then I'm outputting work
Yeah.
to a couple of clients,
Nice.
and that's it. Yeah.
Nice.
And you?
I would say some music, not a lot. There's been many stages where music was a massive focus. I feel like now um, I'm trying to get out of, or at least evolve my like YouTube video watching habit, where I'll just pull up a random video. It's not even something that that I'll decide like, hey, this is something that I really want to figure out or look into or explore. Like the watching of the video is not derived from an impulse internally. It's like just something that I'll start looking, and then I'll be like, this will do. Like this video will do. It's like I'm filling a requirement of just needing a video to be on, either while I'm working. A lot of my output is very systematic, and it's like for work, a lot of recreating, a lot of software stuff that's very tedious and repetitive. So I'm trying to just have, there's just a notion that a video will be playing. So then I'm just hunting and playing random. So I'm trying to get away from that. Some of the consumption these days is diet stuff. I'm trying to figure out a new approach or a new dedicated. It's one of those things. What do you call the moment where we'll have a conversation and we'll say, this is the thing, we're doing this. It's a new, like, what is that? Is that a, it's like it's like a moment, it's like a
novelty phase.
Yeah, sure. I like that. It's like a novelty phase. So I'm in a novelty phase for some diet research and stuff like that. And so that's some of the content that I'm making it seem like it's useful. And then that's peppered in with some other content.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say maybe 50% of that is just to like noise to fill the space. And I have, probably been the least creative in the last little while that I have been in probably months. I haven't been I had the project of the live stream music. I haven't done that in 2 weeks, so I need to, maybe hopefully I can get back on that train. That's, I'm slow. I got back into the book I was reading. I'm still working through The Secret Teachings of All Ages, but that's a long, it's a lot. I was reading this section on Kabbalah. I don't know how to say that. Man,
I've been either.
That's it's so crazy.
I say Kabbalah, like with the accent and the first A, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Just as a side note, that whole system is so detailed. Like you'd have to memorize so much. Like it's separated into so many different, like the whole alphabet. Like there's 22 letters. And
it's also related to like a lot of things.
100%.
So that's endless too.
Betsy, it is. Yeah, and it's a lot.
Who's Betsy?
I don't know. So I'm going through those.
Who the fuck is Betsy?
So that's, some of the chapters I can just get through because I'm like, nice. But this 2 chapters is like W, and then like a paragraph on W, and then how that interrelates, and it's very slow going, and it's so I'm working on that book. I'd like to read that a bit more.
How do you maintain different areas of research? Because that's been a struggle for me. Like recently, I'm sure you could tell from last video, I was in the novelty phase of some personal finance, money related stuff.
Yeah, and I got triggered because I don't want to be thinking about money right now.
But what I've been doing is trying to not consume as much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do consume, it's like I want to make it, I've only done it twice, but I want to make it like I'm attending a class with a real person that's going to be speaking. So I'll have a notebook with me,
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of prepare for it and make like a study session.
Yeah.
Instead of like just watching a video, and because it
Right.
is educative content, you kind of fool yourself into thinking
Yeah.
it's not just any video, so you're cool,
Right.
but I
And
just
you'd
want to make the most
also,
out of it.
sorry to cut you off, but
No, it's
I
fine.
also feel like on that topic of watching videos that seem educational is you never integrate them. Like you watch them and you
Yeah,
go, I agree, and then you just switch to whatever else you're doing, and you don't get
right.
any
It's just
like
entertainment.
it's entertainment. Yeah, it's entertainment that feels more valuable, quote unquote,
Exactly.
to you.
But you have to make it valuable.
Yeah, you'd have
So,
to integrate it. Yeah, I think.
the very last video in that regard that I watched was about making a habit of consciously document your expenses, right? So I was like, I told myself I'm not gonna watch another video on anything until I've documented like this whole year from the beginning of the year, which
Yeah.
I was just like just living my life, and now I'm like going back, and I feel like it's endless. Like I'm watching my bank account and the details and like
Right.
pouring them into this platform, and every time I write it in, I kind of write a short reflection of why I spent that money. But it's been a huge process. It's like a personal work that I'm doing,
Yeah.
and
It's like a
I'm like
journal.
determined to, yeah, I'm determined to not consume or try to learn anything else until I've gone through that process and kind of see what that process changes in me and if it's valuable anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm avoiding new possible areas of improvement until I'm done with
Right.
that.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good way to go about it, and that's I think part of the problem that we get into because when we try to improve upon certain habits or try to engineer things in our lives is that we see a lot of things we want to improve upon, or we see a lot of potential, and so you try to grab onto too many things at once, and then you drop all the juggling balls. So it's like it is that thing of like, man, consistency. If something's being consistent, I think then whatever you're doing is positive. I think if that thing that's consistent is something that you wanted to work towards.
Yeah.
um, um, yeah, I am on novelty phase of new diet habits, so hopefully I'll make it a novelty phase on everything else that I'll try to get going again. Probably meditation, probably reading, probably get back to holding myself accountable for doing the music live streams.
Hmm.
Um, this next week, this week and next week are going to be a challenge just because of the work load that I am expected to complete. So, um, but I think that's good. I think that's
Hmm.
I need to show that's certain things I can implement regardless of whatever the schedule is, and that deciding that that whole concept of I don't have
Sure.
time is we we talk about that a lot. We talk about how that's a very slippery slope to just say I don't have time.
Hmm.
Because there's many reasons why you don't have time, and there's many things that you could probably switch out. There's prioritizing you could do. There's all sorts of things that could happen. I will say, just lastly, on the media consumption, I watched through night one, night two, like the first four, like the four conversations of Harris and Peterson, and I
Okay.
watched them very, um, and I think
Dude,
that
that's like 6 hours of
yeah, it's a lot.
content or more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't feel. I don't want to start with a criticism because I feel like I always do that. It was
I was
phenomenal.
super
It
curious.
was. I thought they were
Okay.
phenomenal. I was very interested. Very great conversations. really interesting to see the phenomenon with the audience.
Right, the pure fact that that event is taking place,
Right.
it's great.
And also, I saw a lot of comments of like, "Oh, I can't these stupid applause." I don't think that
Hmm.
the applause were like one team versus the other team. It really felt like it was people when they heard something, they were like,
I felt that
"Yes."
too.
And
Like,
yeah, like it was feedback.
sure,
Like it was very cool.
exactly, and honest feedback. Yes.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like it was just the, fans of one person were waiting and then like he got you, like woo, like teams. It felt
Right.
pretty there was probably a little bit of that, but
Sure.
um yeah, just I don't necessarily think they have found the connecting point of like how to productively cooperate in making the thing that they want to that everyone kind of collectively sees the potential of what a conversation between those two paradigms could create. I think
Hmm.
that there's still an approach or a specific vocabulary or the way that they communicate. There's still a way that I don't think that they've quite, and I don't know what it is, but I think they
I
feel the
think
same way. Is that it's not there? It's not quite.
I
Um,
think I know what Jordan's view would be on what you're saying right now. I think the
can you put that in a way without
the
saying that it's you think it's his view, or maybe that's
right, because
fine.
I don't.
Maybe that's fine.
My opinion about what I think he sees as the unifying point.
Right?
I'm not saying I'm sure I know what he thinks.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think what he thinks the unifying field is conversation around details. That's what I got from the
Right.
last conversation. The devil's in the details, and that's what we need to be discussing. That's
Yeah.
where something new will emerge from the details. And I
Hmm.
think that has to do with the fact that they're having the conversation
Yeah.
and they're talking about it and talking about the details of it.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
It's really. Yeah. It's hard because the last one that I was watching, and I forget which one it was. I think it was the fourth. Maybe Douglas Murray was the person on stage with them, and
Mm.
halfway through watching it, I felt like you guys should just start going through the Bible and crossing stuff out and rewriting stuff as like a or like I just felt like if you're talking about details, you guys need to just go through and figure out what. But I the problem is I Jordan Peterson seems to say that it needs to be updated. Like there's certain things in it that are not congruent with morality in 2018. He's agreed on that. But then at the same time, there's the thing where there's the bigger picture thing where it's all a part of the same thing, recognizing where it came from and that it's actually informative about cause and effect and where things come from and that there's the whole thing. So it's like those two ideas are held at the same time, so it's hard to know exactly what to do with the texts, which I think is Sam
Mm.
Harris's main thing. It's like we can't have books that say these things and then the best way to be someone who has faith in regards to that religion is to just take it literally. We can't have cults of these books that say things that can't
Yeah.
be criticized that are like you should stone someone, and
And then have our morality based
yeah.
on those books.
Right. Without going into details, because I am clearly not as educated as either of them, or would be capable of I guess making as an educated claim as them. I just will say that this topic is super interesting because I think that it's emerging organically out of this time that like needs that conversation, and that's why it's fascinating to me and why I think it's so cool to see so many people interested, and why that phenomena exists of how popular this thing is because uh, we really need to figure out why we do things and what should be done and what's guiding what is the best thing to do. How should we figure out what the guidelines are? Because, I think a lot of people feel lost and a lot of people don't quite know how to get the answers to questions that are like, why should this be done and what's the point, and like these questions are, there's a vacuum now. And I think it's true that just pure reductionist materialism or just pure like facts, I agree, about the world make it hard to know what the point of things are or what to do is. And that's I just think that it's a very, very cool conversation right now that everyone is fascinated about.
Are you? Yeah, of course. I wanted to ask, are you?
It's not, of course.
Of course, no, it's not. I'm not. I'm not giving you the plane. Do you know what that is?
Giving me the plane? No.
Yeah, that's like a Mexican slang. It's not translatable. That's why it doesn't make sense.
Like an airplane?
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, like when you're in a conversation and someone's like, yeah, of course, yeah. That's giving you the airplane. Like,
What?
yeah, dude, that's a very common
Dude,
Mexican idiom, or
don't
what
give
is
me
it?
the
Like a
airplane.
slang.
Can you explain that or no?
I wasn't giving you the airplane. To give you the airplane?
Is there an equivalent to that?
Yeah, it's just like I'm putting your conversation in an airplane and I'm just sending it away. And I'm just saying like, yeah.
There's
That's what
shooting down the plane. There's like there's a phrase that's like
there's a
shooting
similar phrase?
Yeah, it's like shooting down the
Okay.
airplane. It's like don't just
Okay.
shoot it down.
Yeah.
People will say don't just shoot down my idea.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wasn't trying to do that, but I just had the
I know. I think
the very necessary question. If you're looking, when you're consuming and looking at this conversation, are you really trying to be neutral and like learn from both sides, or are you somewhat inclined to more to either Jordan or Sam?
no.
What's really honestly, are you standing?
Yes. What's interesting is that both of the paradigms in which they live, or I would say probably more on Sam Harris's end, because I mean only the last maybe like a year and a half, 2 years I've been consuming Jordan Peterson stuff, but like I think that my uncertainty or explorations into these two things are equal. Like I don't know what I think about these things. Like
Yeah.
that's why I'm so interested in this, because I don't have I'm not coming at this with a side, because I've been both sides at different times, sometimes at the same time. So and I will just say that one of the things that and I was watching one of the episodes, one of the talks, and I visualized that on stage they were a representation of a collective mind that was left and right hemisphere, or that were two ideas, and the moderator was like substructure of the mind that was
I
trying
have
to.
such admiration for the moderator. Seriously.
Yeah, Brett Weinstein on the first one.
Yeah, I
ones,
meant-
but
Brett Weinstein.
yeah,
Mr.
I was
Weinstein.
Mr. Weinstein. Yeah, I'm watching it from the perspective of seeing it as a mind working together, and I'm adopting that and trying to not.
You don't have any.
No, I don't. I don't. That's why. That's why.
hard to believe.
No, I
So
don't.
you don't want it to turn out any way.
No.
You don't.
No.
Not a 1%.
No.
You don't feel like,
No.
oh, I wish this guy was right. Let's
Nope.
see how it goes, but I wish it was this guy.
No.
You're not. You're slightly cheering for
No, I
Any,
100% promise you, because this is exactly part of the fundamental existential frustration I have about decoding the world and understanding meaning and reality and thinking about it. Like, this is literally, I'm down the line on this. I'm both. Like, I'm down the line. It's the same thing with determinism. I'm like on the line. I don't know how to consider. On the one hand, it seems like things unfold based on genetics and biology and the environment, and no one's in control of their future, and really we are under the illusion that we make decisions. And I'm also 100% on board with the idea that no, there's an aspect of your body that is aware of what's going on, and it can enact action into the world, and it can use will, and in order to make novel choices that would be against or contrary to that which the biological system would have done otherwise. I think both.
right.
I'm like, and that's just an example, but that's just one of the things where I think it's like a two-sided thing in this discussion, and I'm totally, yeah. But
Look, yeah.
that
So the way
said,
I see it,
that said,
yeah.
whatever conclusions they make, I'm not just gonna be like, oh, thank you. I'll
No, of course, because that'll be failure from
Right.
both sides.
But
Yeah.
I am like, come on, guys, please come to an answer on some of this stuff, because I want to have that. That would be
Exactly.
valuable.
That's where I was gonna go. I feel like I'm watching a monologue, and I'm like, please just make sense already.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's the same mind
Yeah.
that's counter arguing, and yeah, like same coin has two sides, and the
Right.
moderator keeps the coin spinning. I think,
Yeah.
but it feels like a monologue that needs to be to find closure.
Yes.
But I do find in me, when arguments are getting heated, some part of me wants Jordan to win the arguments, and I'm just putting it out there. I know it's wrong. It's true.
Yeah.
That's my truth. Um, I don't in the general I want to the common ground to emerge purely, and I'm not cheering for anyone, but I guess part of me slightly wants Jordan to be, because I know that Jordan knows stuff that Harris ignores, and Harris knows
Right.
stuff that Jordan ignores. I know
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Still, I kind of want Jordan to be slightly more on the side of, Harris knows a little less than Jordan knows about these things. Like, he's got more to make sense of. And I don't know why. That's why I'm bringing it up. I don't know why. Is it because,
This is what I'll say.
yeah,
I can jump into this for a second.
please,
The
please.
one thing that's been super fascinating about why I think the stuff that Jordan talks about is very interesting. And I'm not just talking about his political comments on news channels and the things that I'm talking about his lectures where he talks about abstractions and about order and chaos and the embodiment of abstract ideas into story, and like all that stuff is so
Yeah.
fascinating. And it's like the distillation of Jung and archetypes and magic. Like, a lot of what he talks about is derived from alchemy and magic, and I've been interested in that stuff before, but I've also dipped into more of sort of the threads that have to do with alchemy and magic due to seeing how influential they've been on some of his ideas and other people's ideas. And he doesn't name it as such, but that's like the ideas of archetype. I mean, that's alchemy, magic, esoteric, that's Kabbalah, that's all of that stuff. That's where archetypes
Yeah.
come from, the discussion of archetypes. And Jung
Yeah.
was like hardcore into the esoteric worlds. But take all that. That is stuff that I think Sam Harris has dismissed outright as past, confused, irrational material that was generated by people who didn't have the tools yet to examine the world properly.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is not debatable is, or it is debatable, but I think what to me feels so cool and novel and very like it fills a lot of holes in questions is this incorporating and talking about human behavior based on these ancient archetypes that is very, very hard to, like the Superman thing, like when Harris keeps talking about his daughter and how they could tell her about Superman, and Peterson would say that's because the superhero is an embodiment of the archetype of the hero, and that's what these stories are, the main stories, that's what they're talking about, and that's why they're important. It's not some arbitrary story. If you told them a story about a leaf that fell, well, now I'm making story based on the archetypes of, I'll probably turn that leaf into a hero archetype story. But anyways, the point is, I think that stuff is something that really needs to be considered and overlaid onto facts about the world. And I think that's maybe where the discussion could go, is to maybe Harris giving a little leeway into the talking about archetypes and story and figuring out a way to maybe embody more of his ideas of yeah, I went on a tangent there, but I think that the distillation of all these various topics that Jordan Peterson has done and made them rational, I think is why he can have a conversation with Sam Harris, but come from a base of religion, like talking about archetypes, stuff that comes from like the esoteric world, like I said, like alchemy.
Yeah, totally. So
and he's grounded it in real stuff, including biology and history and evolution.
That's what Jung did. That's exactly what Jung did. And that's exactly
to a degree
what Freud was also similar to Sam. He was innovating rationalism and putting it all in safer ground. And there was like a major bifurcation or polarization in psychology in that time, in terms of Jungian and Freudian psychology. And I think, dude, that's very similar to what's happening between Sam and Jordan.
I agree, except here's the difference. Jung did not take those things and attach them to evolutionary psychology, the actual physical biology, grounded it.
But the
thing that's so crazy about Jordan Peterson is he shoots an arrow through Jungian psychology and grounds it in everything else that's almost like acceptable in the modern mindset, and that's why it's so sharp.
I'm cheering for him slightly.
That's why it's sharp.
I think that's the answer.
But here's the thing. I don't think either of them is gonna win out, because this isn't something that's one or the other. And I think one of the problems about this conversation, not this one, but that one, or this topic, is that it is a both and scenario, but something has to be done. That's the problem. It's a both and situation, but we have to come to a conclusion that leads to change. And that's why it's so difficult. Because it's like, you're right, and you're right. If you took the implications of you being right, all of these changes would happen. If we took the implications of you being right, all these changes would happen. If you're right and you're right, what do we do? And that's That's why I think it's so interesting is we need to figure out what to do. And to all those
And it matters what we do.
to all
That's
the
the thing. It really matters.
yeah, and to all the people who are like, "Oh, I'm not going to pay for two white pseudo intellectualists to just jerk each other off for 2 hours," like, and all these fanboys are watching it. Like, I honestly think that you're wrong. I think that people who think that way haven't spent enough time actually. I honestly feel like I think it's an
And
important.
if you
I think
think
it's
that
an
way,
important
you
discussion.
totally miss the value of conversations.
Right. And on the other hand, I think there's a you could go way too far into deifying this topic as this conversation as like this is, you know,
The main thing we should be talking about, and
right. And I'm leaning way more towards that because at least in my personal experience in my life, that topic is a one of the top 10 of like something that I feel like I wish I could find a resolution for. Maybe top 10. So, yeah, that's
but it's frustrating because it feels like we can only wait for them to figure it out, right? Um,
No, I think discussion on it is important. I think we're doing
yeah,
a little bit of
a
that right
little bit
now,
of,
but
but it's that's what I'm saying. How much can we do on our own? Are we not? Because we're definitely not educated enough to figure this thing out. That's why, you know, there's this other very highly
right.
educated people talking about it. And
But
what
isn't
can we do from our small minds to, right?
but
Is there the
isn't that
only
the
thing we can do is watch and
no, 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 no,
reflect?
no. I think isn't that the point of this whole thing? The whole point of this whole thing is we don't have the answers, but we're going to talk about it, and
Exactly.
we're going to try to
Yeah.
make we're going to try to make clear statements, and we're going to try to explore ideas. And it could be wrong. It most probably will be wrong, but yeah, I think that that's the point of this is to not just go they're smarter than us, therefore that's very antithetical to to
Exactly.
why I love Terrence McKenna, and that's also would
Hmm.
leave us with nothing to say. So,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
um,
I think I need to take five.
okay, all right,
Okay.
let's okay, let's see if if we it's like never mind. Okay, here we go.
No, we'll be back for
Five
sure.
minutes.
Don't do this.
No, we will be back, or will
All
we?
right.
We will.
Maybe.
We're here. We're live.
We're alive, and we're back.
We're back. We let's try to catch a wave before the waves go away.
Hmm. No worries. I have a new wave for
Nice.
you.
What is it?
I have a problem to.
That's a pun. It's a visual pun.
What's a pun?
It's a type of joke. It's a type
Oh,
of joke. That was a wave.
that was a wave. Hey,
Yay.
hey, and
All right. All right. What's up? Hit
all
me with
right,
it.
all right. Um, we talk about habit creation, right?
Yeah.
As an important thing to implement, because if you don't create your own habits, then you will repeat habits that someone else created for you, right?
Right. And not necessarily someone else created for you, but that have emerged based on your environment and not consciously.
Which could mean the same.
Right. I just wanted to
But it's
clarify so
important
it's
to
not like
clarify.
someone
It is,
else was like,
yes.
here's
Yeah, right.
your. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Mm. Yes. Okay. Um, is it possible to be the only author of those habits? Or is it always a dance between what you want to happen and the habits you want to implement and the ones your own environment is forcing on you? Is it always a habit? Is it always a balance thing? Or is it sort of the goal to be the only author of, like, I design my life and this is what I'm happy with because this is what I designed, and does that make it sort of like me versus my circumstances thing, and putting that in relation to just this quote that I've been thinking about that um, has to do with the idea that, forget about the quote. The essence of the quote is perfection lies in not not perfection, realization, or just like what could the word be? Realization is a good word. It has to do with not when you don't have anything else to add, not when you don't have any more new habits to implement, but when there's nothing else to remove. That's that idea. It's not about when you don't have anything else to add or better or implement or perfect. It's when you don't have anything else to remove. When
So,
there's any,
so
yeah.
basically, it's just about getting rid of things that you don't like and not about adding anything.
Because you could add endless stuff, right? And you could always be adding things, and that's endless. There's
Yeah, but
you're
it's
never
a.
gonna be perfect, but you could
I
take
think
away the things that absolutely don't serve you, and
right, but something has to
that
go in its
that could
place, right? Something has to go in
finish.
its place. Like if a habit is you're waking up at 12 midday every day and you
Hmm.
remove that habit, it's like you still have to wake up. So then something's going to go in that place and it's going to be something that hopefully you consciously decide. And that's So then there would be a subtraction there, and there would be an addition of something that you decided consciously, this is what I want to put in its place. Or say, every morning I wake up, I get on my phone and I just get lost in social media. All right, I want to get rid of that. You get rid of that. Then what do? What are you doing then in that time that was used every day for that habit? Hopefully something else. Well, you can't do, I mean, there wouldn't be nothing. I mean, you could put meditation. Right. So then
Anything.
You put something else, right? So I don't quite understand the notion of just removing because something else has to go in its place. Or I think it's one of those things where something goes and then something new comes in. And the goal, I think, is to be conscious of what you want to go in and why. And then the complications have to do with what are you prioritizing and how much energy are you putting in towards removing and how much energy you're putting in towards adding and what's the order that things have to happen. Maybe it's a thing that happens at the same time. But and I don't think it's a battle between creating habits with what your environmental pressures are putting on you. I think it's a battle between you and yourself and like the you from the past,
from yesterday.
From yesterday, and you're saying no. I don't want to do this thing. That I don't want to have this be the operating system. I want to switch it out with this. I want to switch this out with this. I think the where it gets technical and where it gets crazy is in prioritizing and balancing motivation.
Exactly. And I think that's, the prioritizing thing, I think that's basic to what I was opening up, because I feel like it matters if you're transforming your reality through removing or adding. And I get it when you say it's both. Like, you can't remove anything without adding anything new, right?
Yeah.
But you do choose where that's coming from. You do prioritize if you're in the mindset of, I don't want to do this anymore and anything else will be better, or I want to do this because this is the thing I'm doing and it doesn't matter anything if I'm doing this other stuff, I'm still doing this. So to put it in more practical terms, let's say you want to wake up at 6 a.m. every day, and that's a great habit. And that's something I want to add to my life. Wake up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. every day. I'll have more time. I'll regulate my sleep patterns, etc., etc. Lots of benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other way that could be implemented?
I think isn't it? Are you talking about the practical approach towards implementing a habit, or are you talking about the psychological approach driving that? Because let's say
both.
So say the practical application would be variable to each specific thing, right? So if it was like, if you're talking about time to wake up, then okay, are you gonna get up at 2 one morning so you're so exhausted the next day that it's easier to get up at 6 and then start that by doing an extreme thing? Are you gonna type?
Right, so that's a practicality of it.
Are you gonna
I'm talking about more of the psychological aspect of it, because what I'm saying is I want to know, and I want to ask you if you think it matters whether you're coming from a place of adding something or whether you're coming from a place of removing something. I know practically it's both. Mm-hmm. You can't do one without the other. Yeah. Because you need to have your life filled with patterns anyway. So you'll naturally do anything else, even if it's meditation, and that means trying to not do anything particular. But
I can attempt to answer your question. Uh,
Let me just
okay, okay,
pre-build
okay.
it a little bit more.
Hopefully I can hold this.
No, okay, bring it. It's the same. It doesn't matter.
Okay, I was just quickly going to say, if we agree with the premise that having a positive intention towards something increases your chance of having it happen just based on that positive mindset, then if we take that and we combine it with the idea that as long as your removal mindset isn't negative,
Hmm.
then that's fine. Otherwise, the
Yes. Okay.
otherwise the addition mindset might be more positive because you could be concentrating on why you're doing it and the benefits and the reasons that are positive for change, as opposed to I hate that I do this. I need to stop doing this. Um, does that seem? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it doesn't really clarify.
Well, then it would be a case by case basis. So it would be for you. It would be okay. I want to get up at 6 every morning.
Mhm.
If you going every day, oh, I hate that I get up at 8. I have to stop getting up at 8. This sucks. I'm so horrible. Like all these things, I can never get myself to do anything. My willpower sucks. I have to stop doing this. If your mindset is I have to get rid of this and it's a negative mindset, then it'll probably be more beneficial to approach it psychologically as it's going to be great at 6 a.m. I want to do it because I have more time. Focus on that. Like 6 a.m. it's going to be great. It's going to feel good because these reasons. So in that case, you would go with positive. But if you're someone who goes,
But
no, it's going to be positive for me to see how I can get rid of this thing and start earlier and remove, get rid of. I'm going to stop getting up at 11 and that's going to be fun because I'm going to be able to tell myself to do something and I'm going to do it and I'm going to watch myself do it. Then that's a positive approach towards removing. And then maybe it's a case by case basis of how you can psychologically uh, add a perspective towards removing or adding. And that's just, I guess, the argument I'm making right now, but I don't know if I'm
mhm,
right.
mhm.
I'm just exploring
Yeah, yeah, I don't know either. And I
it.
guess
Hey,
because what
don't give me an airplane, dude.
oh, here's an airplane. Let's wait for it to go by. Okay, but here's the thing. Um,
Now I feel like I have to defend this.
please don't feel that way
I'll let it
because
go.
I don't even know what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
defending.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like, but I feel like in the past I've gone through the process of not don't focus on this because you're focusing on the negative. What do you want to design
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
meaningful and amazing,
Right.
and that will make energy happen, and
We've
that will
talked
make
about this.
you
Yeah, we've talked about
exactly
this.
yes.
Remind
Okay,
yourself of what's important, what you value, and why you're doing it. That's the thing.
right.
That's the thing.
Could that mean that you can fool yourself into thinking, oh, I got rid of this because I'm focusing on this, which is amazing,
Uh
and
huh.
just got rid of this. This is beautiful. I don't have this anymore because I'm
Yeah.
doing this, and it's amazing. But is that just distraction? Could that be you're distracting yourself from the demon through this new habit that feels productive and valuable and meaningful,
No, no, no.
and
What's the demon?
you will still have to deal with the demon.
What's the demon?
What's the demon could be if you don't wake up early. There could be a reason, there could be a psychological reason that's particular to you and your growing up and your circumstances that you would have to
But you're not doing that
on
anymore. But you're talking.
because you're distracted with the new implementation of novelty thing.
Oh, so you're saying it's
But you would
temporary.
still have it's temporary, and that causes a rebound effect.
I agree. I
That's
agree. But
gonna should but it feels like if you focus on the thing, it's negative. So nothing new could come out of it. But it feels like if you quote unquote face the demon and try to untangle the knot that demon represents, that it's a demon because you can't
right.
deal with it directly, right? So what I'm saying is, if you have a bad habit that's not serving you, or that is putting you in a place where you have more unnecessary suffering, right?
Yeah.
You do that. I think people do those self self self-degrading. Is that yeah? I mean, you do things that don't benefit you for a
Right.
reason, not because it's just a habit. There's a psychological reason
Right.
that has to do with you and your particular growing up and development of your psyche, that you're in that pattern for a reason. And so if you do you tackle the demon, and maybe demon is a bad word because it's negative.
Sometimes it must be the case though that sometimes habits are formed not because there's a demon or because there's like a negative psychological reason for that habit.
Then it's too extreme. Demon is
Sometimes
too
it could be just like laziness, right?
I think that's a demon. I think that's
So then you're saying you can't.
same.
So then you're saying you there's no point in trying to wake up early if the reason you were waking up late was due to laziness. You need to figure out how to not be lazy, and then you
You need
can.
to figure out your true, authentic, deep
Oof.
core,
So
deep core
deep core.
purpose. Dear,
So you
dear,
basically
dear,
you
deep.
you basically have to figure out you why you end up wanting the comfort rather than the short-term suffering, and you have to figure out what what are the exact reasons for why you go, nah,
And
I'm comfortable, I want to get up.
ask
The
yourself,
deep reasons.
ask yourself deep questions so you can get to those deep reasons, and have deep, honest answers, which is the hardest thing to do with yourself
But I
most of the
think
time,
I
right?
think you can also just like military army mentality, just force yourself until it becomes a habit. I think you
Yes,
could
you could.
but I hear what you're saying, that that's like more of a becoming a dictator for your, like you're becoming a.
Or maybe not military, but lifestyle design, which is not as military, but it serves the same purpose, like stick to the
Right.
thing,
And
discipline.
you get
But
really good at reminding yourself of why you're doing it. You make that
you also get
very
really,
effective.
really good at enjoying the phases where you're gonna implement something new and you feel like a warrior and you're like, oh, this whole week, dude, this whole week. And
Uh-huh.
it feels, it makes you feel stronger emotionally,
Yeah.
and how long does it last? And what I'm saying is, if you actually take longer to be in the mud of the mediocreness that you are and figure out why, and kind of, I mean, it's harder, and maybe for some people that's not the way to go. Maybe that could drive you crazy.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, do you believe that could be an but it's also hard to do it with only by yourself. People usually need therapy and
Right.
support, and people to guide you
Or
through the unraveling.
extreme internal exploration, like reflectivity,
Exactly.
like intense, like,
Right.
yeah.
But could
I
that break the
totally.
cycle? Could
Here's the
that break
thing.
the oh, I'm implementing?
Here's the thing. I think this is a subject that is important that we haven't fully discussed or talked about, that is worth talking about, and the application of it has yet to be determined. And I think that that is okay. And I think,
Hmm.
uh,
That's
uh,
good though. That's
yeah,
great.
it is. It is good, but the thing is, and the other day I talked about this. Um, I feel like your perception of the world is so different day to day sometimes. Like sometimes you wake up, like we talked about how sometimes you're in the novelty generating mode and you're like, you feel motivated. I thought that's like we could think about that in many different ways, and I don't fully know what the actual reality of the cause of that is, what the causal factor of that is. Is that like a sub-personality that exists in your neural network that sometimes something gets you into that track and then you're in that mode and it's actually accessible at any time, and it's just somehow you need to get into that neural network, and then once you're in there, it's a sub-personality that is like the novelty motivating zone? Is it hormonal? Is it sometimes your cortisol and all that stuff is just aligned and your brain is functioning differently because of hormones and you feel more positive and want to do that? I don't fully understand what the changes, why physiologically or metaphysically or whatever, why you go through these patterns of changed perspective. But this is a problem. The problem is that if you say, this is why I want to do this habit and here's the reason and I value this and blah, 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 you write it down, you look at it, you're like, that makes so much sense. It motivates me. I understand why I wrote that. It feels good. Boom. This is going to be good. I can look at this and I'll want to run at 5 a.m. and I'll see this and I'll be like, yes. Some days you'll wake up and it's not just that you don't remind yourself of that. It's you could look at it, read it, and the mental processes that are going on in your mind are different. Like a different sub-personality is there at that time looking at it and going, not really.
Right.
And then it's like, and so and then you'd have to wait, I guess, until whatever factors get you back into the zone. You know what I mean?
You're saying you're not always yourself. You don't always
I don't think there is a...
think with the same value system.
I don't think there's a self.
Okay,
really.
yeah. Let's not get into that.
Okay.
Just
no, but my point is, I don't think there's a consistent. There's a consistent thing that's necessarily.
Right, but you don't think the same when you're waking up than when you're already all energized.
Exactly.
Right. I mean,
exactly.
you don't have the same value system through which you make the choice. You make the the reason or the argument for whatever it is that you need to do.
Justification.
When you just woke up, the justification, you only need to justify continuous sleeping. That's the only thing you need to justify when you wake up.
Yeah.
I mean,
your sleep.
That's important. That's important for your brain, for your psyche at that moment.
Your comfy, sleepy personality is in full control.
In full control, yeah.
So is it the thing that has to happen is because the observer can still be there. When you wake up and your sleep zone personality guy is there and he's very convincing and he's very rhetorical and he's very accurate as well. You can also have an observer there that can see it and you can go, oh, I'm doing the thing again where I just justify sleep, but you'll still be like, but I'm going to go back to sleep because it's right?
Yeah.
So it's
when
like,
you
how do
wake up early.
It's figuring out how to engineer the ability to push will through the observer, get its hands out of the observer, and switch out the sleepy personality with the thing that you need.
Yes, but the tricky thing, and that's exactly I think that's exactly the point here. Is it will? Is it will, right? Or what I'm saying is is it a muscle? Observer needs to like control the thing and triumph over.
We need to grow hands out of the observer. The observer needs to grow hands.
Yeah, so that it
like that, so it can do stuff.
It can at least grab onto wakefulness and triumph over monkey mind wanting to continue in non-existence because it's beautiful there.
You need to turn the observer into the governmental body that can put things at war. It can say, look, the tribe of sleepiness personality wants to take over, and it's already here, and it's taken over the city, and it's got all of the buildings filled with sleepiness personality people from that village, And you need to
Hmm.
be able to say, I'm going to send this army of will and value directed whatever, and I'm going to make them battle. And then you lay in bed and you let them battle, and then hopefully that one is big enough so that the observer needs to be the director of armies.
Yes, yes, yes. I think so. I think so. The observer needs to learn how to not let the mind make its own choices. You
Yeah.
need to make observer conscious choices that are based on real meaning and purpose.
Yes.
And if that real meaning of purpose, passion, dude, I always feel weird when I say that word. Anyway,
It's like a dugong.
uh, what's that?
I think porpoise is the name of like certain ocean mammals, like dugongs and
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Nice. Okay.
Sorry, we cut off your flow.
I'll try to put it in simpler terms, I guess.
Don't put it in simpler terms. Put it in accurate terms.
Dude, I wish I knew what accurate was. I'll
Truthful.
try. I'll
Truthful.
try. I'll try. I'll try. I'll try. We're agreeing that in that moment when you need to wake up, there's two elements at play. The
Much more, but at least two.
At least two. Yes, thanks. The basic two that we're agreeing right now that are in play
Yeah.
are the fact that your monkey minds want more sleep and could argument endless rational things to continue sleeping.
Should we maybe
And
separate it from monkey mind to like a sub personality that is connected to monkey mind? Like
mhm,
I
yes,
think monkey mind.
yes, 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 yes.
We need to work on our definitions of monkey mind. But I'm with you.
Like,
Yeah. Yes.
and I'm with
There's
you.
sleep
Yes,
personality guy.
both agreeing. Okay. And then there's the observer
Yeah.
that could know that the monkey mind is making, or the subpersonality
Yep. Yep. Yep.
of the sleepy guy wants
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
the sleepy guy wants to keep sleeping and rationalize keep sleeping, but the observer can observe that.
Yes, and let me
We can agree
quickly
there.
just put an asterisk that the observer is in my mind still an unknown, whether it's metaphysical or just a function of the mechanical aspects of the brain that can see and that gives the illusion of being able to witness.
Which we are naming observer for
Right.
this
Sure.
conversation's, yeah,
Porpoise.
purpose. Thanks. Beautiful. And you're saying, or you just said
Yeah.
that will needs to pierce that. Will.
Will. Yes.
Who is Will? Right?
Will is
Who the fuck is Will, bro?
yo. Will and Betsy are friends.
Right, they're friends.
Listen,
What's their relationship?
Will is the mechanism. Is the will is the functional energy directed energy directed mechanism by which you impose a designed conscious thing from manifesting into the world in physical or mental capacities.
And that brings us, thank you, dude. You're great at this. You're great at, you really are. You've always been great at like
Thank you.
putting it in
I'm
there.
trying.
Okay. That brings us to the basic premise after the break that I was trying to implement. That you either implement through will,
Yeah.
or could you, and that will implementation, I think we're agreeing, could come from a a new phase that you
Yeah.
want to tackle.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is
I almost
that.
think that that is not that. Sorry. Finish the sentence. Finish the sentence. I was just gonna say that motive. That's I just that the
Uh-huh.
inspirational like I'm gonna do this new habit thing. I don't think that's will, but that's another discussion. That's like pseudo
Okay, no,
empowerment.
it's the same discussion. It's the
Okay.
same discussion because what I'm trying to argue is will needs to come from a real place. Will could come from this, oh, this is the third time I'm waking up at 5 a.m. and yesterday was trippy and cool and like, dude, I had so much time, so I'm doing it the third time. And like that could be the thing. But what I'm saying, if you,
Man, that guy would get shut down so easy by my sleepy guy.
yeah,
If I
yeah.
tried to get that going, like that personality to take over the city again, the army of sleepy guy would be like, get the fuck out of here.
Just don't even try.
No.
Yeah.
Like really?
Right,
Your army is one person. I have 1 billion people. I've been gathering this
so
army for 20 whatever years.
are we agreeing that the better approach, I mean, it's a good approach to be excited by something new and to trying to change your habits and your
Yeah,
everyday
yeah.
experience, and that's better than just giving up and settling, right? But it's a better approach taking the real necessary amount of time for yourself and the necessary time to process your own stuff so that your will is based on real self-awareness, real motives, real intentions that are aligned with a life passion, a real purpose, like a deep core belief that there's a reason why you're here and there's a fucking great, pure,
Yeah.
deep thing
Something, yeah.
will will make all those military guys be like, whoa, dude, let's retrieve. This guy needs to wake up.
Yeah.
Right? And is that passion? Is that
Such a
real
hard
purpose?
discussion.
And is it will that break
Pun intended.
the cycle where you're in the hole, you want to get out of the hole, you're in the hole, you want to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Whatever your hole means to yourself, you can only diagnose yourself. But like, or is that cycle always going to be there, even for the people that have the purest passion, most alive fire in their hearts that they want to change their life and their word and go walk towards their destiny?
Okay. How would you practically so okay, so there's a couple things going on here in this conversation. There is uh, the conversation about will and the ability for the observer to have a hand, grow hands and be able to
Mhm.
help move the sub personalities that are controlling behavior and to have action be enacted by conscious decision making processes. There's that conversation. Then there's the conversation about does underlying psychological, deep fundamental reasons about you metaphysically or psychologically prevent you from growing hands on the will and being able to do that stuff. And your point, or what you are going back to, is the need to face those fundamental deep reasons for why it's much harder to do the will implementation and just have things happen and then go back and happen and go back, because that deep thing hasn't been faced with in the same way in the same way that lots of modern medicine is putting a band-aid on something, and the reason for the thing manifesting itself isn't always discussed.
Mhm.
I want to put towards you then a question about a question that a question slash potential answer, and that is, is it just is there a bit is the answer to approaching those deep things within us that we're talking about, is the answer to that meditation? Okay, we talk about that a lot because you need to find out what those things are. So then you need to have a deep reflection. And in my mind, the only thing you can go to is meditation,
Yeah.
or like out of body metaphysical experiences, however you want to approach that discussion. So is in that light, if you agree on that, and you can not agree with that, but just I'd like you to approach that possibility that it's meditation. You can, however else you want to go to it, that's all right. That's additional.
Mm-hmm.
In this area here, the meditation area, is there a specific protocol that we should follow or approach to meditation that you think would be more beneficial than mindfulness at discovering those things? Because mindfulness is going to see what comes up. You're going to see what the habits are. You're going to see what your conditioning is. That's one thing. And maybe that's the best. But that might not get to that deep thing, and I don't quite know that's kind of an arbitrary thing. But do you ask yourself questions? Do you force yourself to explore things?
100%. Yeah, dude, I think, and I've been doing that for a while. I think I do see that mindfulness, you could be just training your attention, but not making any real personal work in terms of emotional and psychological work that needs to be done. You could be training your mind to focus. And
right.
Out of that training, thoughts will arise. And those thoughts, if you only regard them as thoughts that are not important, you note them, you train to let them go again and again. And you're training so that when death comes, you're able to let go. And you...
Whoa.
At least
that's a second.
Dude, I just went there.
I know that, dude. That is not what we're talking about. But I mean, that's like another reason why noting in meditation it's like attachment to everything, including death. That's a massive separate thing.
Well, what I wanted to say is that there's an underlying reason in many meditation traditions that you practice for death.
Right. Can you tie this back? Can you tie this back into?
I am.
Okay. Okay.
I'm tying that back because
okay.
You will have to let go of every attachment when death comes. That's the idea. And you practice. But until that comes, you have to live with your mind. And you live your ego. You can't get rid of it. You live through your ego.
Yeah.
And most of confusion and most of, I think, the reasons why we don't live in excellence, whatever excellence means to anyone, it's psychological. So if you're only training your mind to be present in the way that go back to the breath, go back to the posture, go back to the focus, and you don't take those rising thoughts and emotions that are linked to the thought as real things that need to be taken care of, you don't develop yourself personally. So what I say is go into mindfulness meditation, but then if that thing arrives that triggers you, go write in your journal and, and pour it into that and try to unravel the knots.
Yeah, and I don't know where I've seen it, but I love just the sentence of face yourself. That's it. It's facing yourself, man. It's facing yourself. Yeah, because we avoid that
Because
a lot.
in a way, with just mindfulness, you could be training yourself to ignore yourself,
Yeah, for sure. Well,
which is very valuable, and that's a that's a great skill. But that's a trick. You could be fooling yourself into thinking you're great at mindfulness, but you have all of these other personality things that need to be taken care of.
I might be misinterpreting you, but I don't know if I fully agree that if you are practicing mindfulness, like, and I'd say it's a practice. I don't necessarily know if it's something you could be good at, although maybe you are good at it if you are like very conscious of every thought that's coming up and you're aware
You
of it.
can be good at it. Yeah.
But if you do that a lot, I don't think you can avoid yourself if you're really doing that. Maybe if you only practice mindfulness when you're like feeling good and you just woke up and you know all the thoughts that you're
So
having.
you're saying that will lead you into personal
Yeah.
development.
Yeah,
Yeah. No.
yeah, if you're truly watching your thoughts, it's going to go there. And so I don't think you can trick yourself out of that if you're really watching. I mean, I'm sure there's selective ignorance. Like I'm sure if you're practicing mindfulness, maybe something comes up, you'll go, somewhere inside, you're like, I'm going to pretend that didn't come up. And then you're like, I'm hungry. And you're like, noted. I like that one. I'm going to deal with that. I saw that I was hungry.
That'll be superficial practice.
Right. But I think if you're actually looking at everything that comes up, sometimes it's going to get serious. And I don't think you shouldn't be able to control that.
But that doesn't mean that continuing with the mindfulness practice is the answer for those things. I think journaling would be a greater and having a secure and peaceful conversation with someone in a safe environment that could also accelerate the learning process way more, because it's about the details. It's about the things that you can't comprehend clearly. That's confusion, and confusion is dark, and you can't and I'm trying to get there, because if you don't have a clear idea of the reason why you need to wake up, if there's 10% confusion, then sleepy guy can win.
Not even if there's no confusion. If you're crystal clear, and this is why I brought up that statement thing that you could look at every day, and some days it doesn't even affect you at all. I think that it's that's sort of, I guess, the room where perhaps the thing that's influencing why your perspective on it shifts is that underlying deep stuff that hopefully you'd be able to address through meditation. So maybe I think that's what we're talking about here. And all right, here's the thing.
I also think I'm kind of realizing closure. Okay. I'm listening.
Can you hold it? Is it something that you think you can maintain?
I can hold it. Yeah, I can hold it.
All right. This is one of the things that always comes up in terms of prioritizing. Journaling, of course, amazing, especially if it comes from something that originates through mindfulness practice, meditation. Amazing. We're talking about meditation as a tool for investigating and finding those underlying reasons for the inability for will to be able to enact subpersonalities from taking over unwanted subpersonalities. We're talking about how that's interrelated. All right, meditation, amazing. Noting, amazing. Journaling, amazing. I don't want to contradict myself in our statement, or ourselves in our statement about there's not enough time. But our lives are busy. In our current state, we do, until we can grow the limbs out of the will observer so that we can use the arms. Like, our will isn't super strong, I would say. Maybe it is, maybe that's a whole other discussion. But we want to improve our will, and that's one of the things that we need if we're going to implement all of these things that we can talk about that are beneficial, waking up early, journaling, meditation, exercise, getting your diet conscious and engineered by yourself consciously so that it's something that you want to do. All of these things are like, they could be a full-time job. It could be a full-time job. So I guess the problem that I have is we need to tackle something first. You have to tackle something first. We're talking about all these various things that we know need to be boosted up, next leveled. And I don't necessarily have a solution, although the solution I usually come to is meditation is priority number one, regardless of what it is. And funnily enough, which I don't know if that's a word, but I like saying funnily because it's a weird one. Funnily enough, that's the thing that I always don't end up having as a consistent thing, because I think probably there's a fear of facing myself, which I think is why people distract themselves on social media and on their phones the most. I think the main reason is you don't want to face yourself. I think we have a disease in the 21st century, 2018, of people unwilling to face themselves.
Right, but you're willing to suffer for the...
Hello? Uh-oh. We lost audio and video. We'll see what happens. I'm currently speaking to no one, but at the same time potentially someone who came across this and is listening to or watching it. And we're back.
Hey. How's it going?
Good. I was just talking.
That was a long break. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That wasn't a long break. I want to somehow summarize this discussion and before energy dies, come to some sort of an agreed upon thing.
Right.
I want to throw in just one idea that's flying around. This is something that I know that will is a muscle. I think it's a muscle, and maybe I'm wrong. But I think maybe one of the ways to get training wheels on the ability to do that is to continuously tell throughout the day, if you're like, I want water, say, no, I'm not going to have water. I'm going to have water at 105, and then wait till 105 and then go get water. Just continuously make changes to what you're going to do. If there's an impulse, say no and say, I'm going to do it this way. Don't just but is that a practice, do you think, that could increase will? Is just making yourself do stuff, little stuff, and saying no?
Yeah, I think that's a practice, and it's a muscle, same as focus, same as it's easy for me to go back to breath, and it's easy for me to let go of the mental identification. You can practice to be good at that.
And let me kind of dissolve that as a secondary activity and bring it back into meditation, because I think that happens in meditation, because just the simple thing of going, you're distracted, go back, that's will, that's practicing. So one of the things that I feel like I would like to do is and it's probably just meditation. I think I already have the answer, but I would like to dissolve as many varying practices that I think would be beneficial into sort of one or two things that I can do, because I'm not going to throughout the day practice will engineering to benefit will at the same time noting, at the same time mindfulness, at the same time always going back to the breath, at the same time. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So maybe I have my answer.
I do think that meditation brings self-awareness. And don't think meditation is the only thing that brings self-awareness. Honest, conversations and safe environments with people you love and they love you and they want the best for you. I think that could really be even more beneficial than meditation. But meditation with I just want to I don't think conversations can be more beneficial than meditation. I don't think that is the same thing, But in terms of self-awareness,
Yes.
sometimes the proper conversation can just uh, make lots of progress.
Yeah,
But
because
all,
some
but
it'll take you into waters where you wouldn't necessarily be if you were alone, I think.
exactly, yeah, that's it. Um, but and also on the other hand, you can be better at will implementation. You can get
Yeah.
better at that. But where I think I'm arriving is will without clarity and intention, and that's
Right, 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 right,
self-awareness.
right.
Without that, it'll bring up a cycle of ups and downs.
Okay, so this is a massive thing that maybe we can touch on in another thing
It's a
because
massive thing.
I have energy right now, but I can tell I know that it'll probably start fading soon,
Me too. Me
just
too.
from the time. But
Yeah.
what you're talking about is basically the need for the will itself to have a idealized value system, and that's a
What do
different.
you mean by idealized?
Uh,
That's well.
Here's the thing. Just I'll put this out there.
Yes, 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 yes,
Okay,
yes.
so before my visualization of the waking up thing. Okay, so you wake up. I'm going back to this city visualization.
All right.
The sleepy guy personality army has infiltrated the whole city, and
Mm-hmm.
and I saw this visual that I was going to practice because I enjoyed this visual and maybe I could do it in the morning and maybe use that as a tool. But to pretend to be the observer and then to allow the observer to try and say, no, I'm going to try to put this army of reasoning, this army of get up for these reasons on the city of mind, and I'm gonna watch them war. And I've built up so many reasons and positive statements about why this that I've given this army a lot of weapons, and I'm gonna watch and I'm gonna see that go, and they're gonna fight and whatever. What you just mentioned made me wonder: is the observer just throwing these different is the value system connected to the army and the personality subpersonality, or is the value system inherent to the like, you know what I'm saying? Is the observer bias, and should it be bias, and should we design bias, or is the observer just somebody who looks at the army that's there and says, I'm going to put this army? And maybe, of course, there needs to be bias because it has to put the new army. But the why am I doing this? I was putting on the army, and that is able to output that and not put the whys on the observer. Does that make sense? Or is this messed up?
It makes sense partly.
Okay, I agree.
It could bring up another 2-hour conversation.
I agree. So maybe we can talk about this another time.
But one last thing that I want to say is self-awareness and the whys behind the observer could be biased, I think, because self-awareness is not final. There's a dance between ignorance and knowledge with yourself and with everything that's outside yourself, right?
Agreed.
So you will never totally have a super solid purpose, I think. What I think happens is you dance with yourself in terms of excellence and mediocreness. I've been obsessed with what mediocrity means for, I think, since I knew the word mediocrity existed. What is it? And like, I don't think I have the answer yet.
It's abstract.
It is abstract, but it's also subjective because you can only know what your mediocrity is and just compare yourself with yourself yesterday.
Yeah.
And you can only know what your excellence could be.
Yeah.
So you have to have that daily struggle with yourself, and it's not. And I think I was implying at the beginning of the conversation that you could figure shit out and then just be on point. And
Right.
I think that's my idealization of quote unquote super successful people or super destiny driven people. I think
Yeah, but I
they.
think, but also I think we need to be careful about putting that caveat on it. So, and the result of putting that caveat on it is not succeeding as much as you would have if you didn't put that caveat on it. So I think maybe we should also be careful not to limit ourselves in exploring potential, maybe.
Yeah,
But
no.
because also
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about is a limit case. It's like where there's a like of course there's going to be a place where it runs out and you can't just be 100% on point. Your values and everything is in a pinpoint accuracy perfect thing. But
Mhm.
the point is it could definitely, no argument at all needed, it could definitely be 100% better than it currently is. And that's I think what is clear, and I think what we're talking about and exploring how to
Yeah.
how to get to that place, which
Yeah.
I guess is abstract as well. I'm gonna throw out this
Sure.
topic that I would like to talk about maybe next time. Maybe we, as maybe a
What is it?
I wanted to do, this is firstly I wanted to talk about perhaps at the beginning of our streams, of our conversations, we could bring up things that we've been thinking about consuming, all so that I think maybe that's a good way to catch a wave, is to just as a practice at the beginning, just bring up ideas, topics that we've been thinking about, and maybe organically is a better way, but maybe that's also organic. Anyways, I think maybe also at the end we should, what we've tried to do is maybe summarize a little bit what we've talked about, where we've gone, and I think we already did that in this, to be honest, maybe 15 minutes ago. But also to mention maybe things we could touch on in the next time we talk.
Yeah.
So throw that aside. One thing that I wanted, that because sometimes the possibilities are there at the end of a conversation and then will dissolve before the next one happens.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring up this idea of, and this it's going to end on a very like maybe metaphysical note, but of engineering personalities and creatures that you can awaken in your mind,
Spirit animals.
spirit with specific purposes, with specific things in mind, and maybe that is a sidetrack from empowering the observer and the will and the value system. Maybe it's part of the same conversation, but I do think that there is the possibility for extreme function in creating maybe three main like points, like making a drill sergeant and embodying that drill sergeant in something visual.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
it keeps you reminded of things, and trying to get that to be engineer that as like a reminder subpersonality, and designing that, engineering it, giving it a visual so that you can picture it and image it, and that image can get more clear as you use it. But that's something that I'm interested in as like alchemical exploration.
Yeah, and I'd link that to the episode where we talk about waken visualization
Yeah.
and
Right.
developing that.
Yeah, because one thing that interests me a lot is using these metaphors that we've talked about and like actually watching them play out. Like tomorrow morning, I think I'm going to actually when I wake up, when I set my alarm early, I'm going to imagine I'm going to imagine the city, and I'm going to imagine, and I'm going to try to put, I'm going to try to put an army on it, and I'm going to watch it and see what happens. uh, and see if that impacts anything tangible in the world.
I'll try to make a like around 10-minute meditation before I go to bed and really ask myself, what could tomorrow be, and why would tomorrow serve me as a whole, and in my life, in a not long term but all term, and try to see if I can remember that thing very clearly in the morning, and see if that makes a difference in the struggle. And also, I also want to say,
sorry, go.
No, I was gonna move on.
Okay, I was gonna say that I think this is, and we've had this, not realization, but we've had this idea, and I don't know if it goes on top of another thing we've talked about, but the idea of this whole notion of engineering a daily habit, like I'm gonna do this every day for the next month, go. I think what we've just done, which I think is a thing that's happening now, because I think we've acknowledged that's a very difficult task for many different reasons, which we've explored. But I just wanted to say, I think it would be cool if we try to more experiment with the approach of this is tonight, this is tomorrow morning, and don't have expectations of consistency yet, unless that morning you also say again tomorrow morning. And
exactly. I love that. Yeah. I also want to add, it might be hard for me because I'm traveling later today.
Okay.
For work, so I'll wake up in a hotel. It'll be novel. It'll be like their new city. So that's something else. And what you were mentioning, that we should. I was gonna say maybe we should some episode try to ride a specific wave, like. Let's talk about this in this episode.
Yeah.
And kind of prepare, how do I feel about this topic? What am I going to bring up? Maybe we've never done that. Maybe that would be interesting.
I would, and we can discuss which approach we want to take, but I would also like to maybe produce a list, either together or individually, about certain interests, and whether or not we make it as a collaborative thing or as an individual thing that we maybe just say, from my list, here's a thing. But I agree. And I'm also open to maybe like one of, if we do 2 casts a week, one of them is exploration. We bring up stuff and try to catch a wave. And the second one is like a decided upon subject, something like that. Or I would be open to making sort of a schedule in terms of the casts and something like that. Also, if you're interested in deciding on a protocol, like at the beginning and at the end we try to summarize, like making a sort of common agreed upon thing that we do, maybe.
That could happen. That could happen eventually, where we kind of fall into some.
I won't force it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Dude, that was great conversation.
Great conversation, and so should we decide sometime this week? Might be best for you.
I think I'm going to have to miss. I won't be back until Friday.
Okay. No worries. Friday?
I'll be back Friday. So maybe Saturday, Monday, Sunday. I don't know.
I might be camping this weekend, so I might be away.
Nice.
In the Alpine.
So maybe this is a one cast week.
Maybe, but we'll see. Stay in touch.
Sure, yeah.
So thank you, and
thank you.
See you soon.
All right.